Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I want to first and foremost apologize for the yellow lighting. I just got home and it's kind of dark, so we're doing disc lamp lighting today. Today, as you can tell by the title, I wanted to talk about the activity section of my AMCAS application. Just an update on that. As I mentioned in a previous video, I submitted day 1 and my application actually got reviewed in 9 days. So today is the 24th. I've gotten emails from a couple of the schools that I've applied to. No secondaries yet, just them saying that they've gotten the application, but they're coming pretty soon. So hopefully I will have another video coming out about my experience with secondaries. So we are going to go ahead and jump into the activities section of the AMCAS application. First and foremost, I wanted to talk about the activities section itself. So over here, you will see all the bullet points I will be talking about. First and foremost, you have 15 activities that you are able to put into the activities section. Of those 15, you can pick 3 that are going to be your most meaningful. So in essence, what that means is for all of your activities, you get 700 characters, including spaces and punctuation, to describe the activity. If you label that activity as a most meaningful, then you get an additional 1350 characters to describe in more depth why that activity was a most meaningful activity for you. So the other thing you need to know about is the different categories that you can place your activities into. There are a lot. There's 18 categories, and starting at the top, we have artistic endeavors, community service, clinical and non-clinical, conferences attended, extracurricular activities, hobbies, awards and honors, intercollegiate athletics, so this is your NCAA athletics, leadership, military service, and going back up to leadership, it's not listed anywhere else, so it's like an individual leadership event, military service, other, paid employment, medical, clinical, paid employment, non-clinical, clinical shadowing, presentations, posters, publications, research, and teaching or tutoring. So since there are 15 activities, there's no way that you can get all 18 of these done. So don't worry about trying to meet each individual category because it's not going to happen. Just do what you love and do what you care about and just pick the correct category for it. Now, whenever you input things, AMCAS will automatically order them chronologically. So no matter which order you put them in, they will display chronologically on your application. How I personally did my applications and how I went about it was you can either use a Google or a Word document. I used a Google document and I was able to type everything up so that when the application opened, I can copy and paste right in. Google Docs isn't recommended by AMCAS for formatting reasons, but I had no problems with it. So basically what I would do is type my description and use the word counter to make sure that everything was appropriate, and then once applications open, just boop, boop, just copied and pasted right over. So before I show you my actual activities descriptions, I'm going to tell you how I kind of attacked them, if you will, and how I thought about it. So the first thing I did was I wanted to make sure that I was talking about exactly what I did. And I wanted that to be the first sentence, if not one of the first few sentences. The next thing that I did was I wanted each of them to somehow have a story, or even if it wasn't a most meaningful, I wanted to say why I thought this activity was important for me personally. And then the last thing was I picked my most meaningful based not on what I thought that they would care about, but what I cared about. And I feel like, and I've even gotten caught up in this too, where everybody's like, oh, medical admissions are a game, like you have to play your cards correctly. And I'm going to say that, of course, I'm going to try to do that because I want to get into medical school, but as you will see on my application, I actually picked one of my hobbies as most meaningful for me, and that's just me being true to myself, because that was the most meaningful experience for me. So without further ado, I will erase this, and we will put my application over here. So here we have my AMCAS application. As you can see, it is ordered in chronological order. The most recent things are up at the top. And one feature that I do believe is unique to this 2023 application is distinct sections between the hours that you work up to submission, or I think it may just be through the end of May. I think they cut it off at the end of May. So your current hours that you have worked up to that point, and then anticipated hours. The first one, as you can see, is a clinical volunteer experience, meaning of course I'm not getting paid, but it is a clinical experience, meaning I am dealing with patients and such. So you can see in the first line that I say what I do at the clinic, which is patient intake, vitals, sometimes I'll run urines, and just secretarial tasks. And then I have a short blurb about why the clinic interests me and why I enjoy it. This of course is true, but I may also enjoy it because they buy me lunch. But you know, the other things are good too, but you know, free lunch is nice. And then for the second one, I kind of do the same thing. I talk about urban ministries first a little bit, but then I go into my tasks pretty soon within like the first 3 sentences of what my responsibilities are. And then I say, you know, this is why I care about the clinic, and care about the food pantry. And it has been something that I really enjoy, and quite honestly, is a really good morning workout. On the mornings that I go, I get very sweaty. I just throw like sacks of rice around. It's great. So the next one is of course my YouTube channel, which I started pretty recently. I guess it's been like almost a month and a half now, maybe. I honestly don't know, but I wanted to include this because it's something that I care about. Even though I don't really have that many hours in it, it's something that I plan to do. As you can see, I put a lot of anticipated future hours there, just because I see myself doing this for quite a while. I want to carry you guys along with the journey, and the main reason that I started this YouTube channel is because there's a ton of great resources out there, but you know, I wanted to provide a perspective from somebody who's currently going through it and hasn't already been through the process. I just wanted to take you guys along with me. So there is that. So the next one, this is a teaching category. Teaching, tutoring, so if you like tutor orgo or something like that, you'd put like a tutoring label, but this one, I actually created a class. This was a super fun one, and I describe more the activity itself. There, in terms of like lesson plans and stuff like that, I think it'd be exceedingly boring to be like, I created I say I created a lesson plan, but this is one where I think the outcome is what affected me the most, not so much like putting a lesson plan together, but being able to teach people something that I was also really passionate about, and seeing them get excited about it was one of the best experiences ever. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if your college has any similar programs, I would do it. Highly recommend something like this. So I'm starting to get into some research stuff here. So these are 2 that I did at UNC. So if you did a research study and you ended up getting a publication out of it, like your name on a publication, I would list it as publication and not research, because you did get your name on an article. Or I think that's how it works. I don't know. I never got my name on an article. But if you have publications and you want to list like multiple publications, that's probably the more correct way to do it. So there's just that. I didn't get any publications out of these because the first one was a pilot study, meaning that we were just seeing if this would work, and we didn't go into it with a hypothesis or anything like that. We were just trying out a model for care. So as you can see with the first one, I did in the first sentence describe the study and say like what the goal was, and then I'd go into kind of my responsibilities by at least the 3rd sentence, and then a little bit about you know, how it affected me, and being able to get one of my questions that I really wanted into the questionnaire, and that made me very excited. So the next one, I also didn't get a publication out of because, or a poster presentation. So sometimes when you do independent research at your university as part of like a capstone project or like a thesis, you'll get a poster out of it. This was just me wanting to research something, and my mentor was like, okay, you have to give me a paper. So there was that. I researched or I created a questionnaire and research. So I talked about everything that I did, how I independently investigated, like who my mentor was, and things like that. So that's pretty much all there was to it. It was independent research. It didn't get published. So this next one, I kind of have a group of some volunteer activities, and I had originally grouped this, and you'll see I have like a miscellaneous volunteering section where I just kind of grouped together a bunch of volunteer hours that I've done over time. This one I originally put into there, but I had so much that I wanted to say about it that even though it's not the largest amount of hours, I wanted to pull it out because I had enough to say and talk about it. So I know that some people will try to, if they have a ton of activities, try to save space by grouping a bunch of stuff together. But if you feel like there's something where like you're trying to group it in, but then you just end up wanting to say more and more and more about it, I would honestly just pull it out independently and talk about it because you obviously have enough that you want to say about it. So the next one was the Health Careers Club itself, which I have a lot of Health Careers Club stuff. But this is an example of one where I talk about some leadership stuff that I did with the fundraising committee and then helping to start the mentor program. So whenever we were going through the activities descriptions where it says leadership, like otherwise not listed, I wouldn't pull these out and go put that into that because I'm talking about them within this. So I would just leave it as an extracurricular activity. And just talk about some of the leadership stuff that I did within the group. All right, so now we're getting to, it just so happens that my most meaningful are kind of all smushed together. So now you get to see what they look like, where you have that small 700 blurb up at the top and then the bigger 1350 blurb at the bottom. So for this one, since I was going to put my most meaningful, I knew that I wanted most of my story time with that one, which is what I also did with my other most meaningful. The 700 characters, I wanted to spend all of that space talking on accomplishments and things that I had done with the company. So as you can see, that's basically what I did here. And then with my most meaningful is when I got into story time and how it affected me. The big thing here with this one, and I believe it's the next one or the one after, which is also my most meaningful, I also talked about these in my personal statement. So the big thing here is I wanted to make sure that the stories that I was talking about for my most meaningful didn't overlap with stuff that I had already said. The sentiments largely remain the same because of how these events impacted me, but the stories themselves are different. I'm not recycling stories between my most meaningful and my personal statement. So the next one, I've redacted the most meaningful because it's very personal. So just keeping my privacy here. But so the next one is a hobby. It's combat sports, and yeah, I spent a ton of time doing this, like over 1,000 hours. So, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I put it as my most meaningful because it was. All right, the next one, as I mentioned, so this is the other one that was in my personal statement. This was a shadowing experience. Even though it wasn't like the heftiest number of hours, it was extremely impactful. So of course it automatically gets most meaningful. So as with the other one, I used the 700 to talk about like what I did on a daily basis and kind of how things went. And then I used my 1350 to tell stories and how it impacted me. Next one is shadowing. So for this one, you can see that I put multiple dates in. So this is one where I like redacted everybody's name. I shadowed multiple physicians. Each one was like about a shift's worth, so it wasn't a ton of time, but I mean, it adds up to about, what was that, like 20, like almost 30 hours. It's less than 30 hours, but I'm just gonna round to an even number. So with that one, I did label like all 3 people that I worked with. I will note though that if you are doing this, it cuts down on your character count. There's no other place to put in, like in the dates or anything, like the multiple people that you work with. So you have to use that 700 characters, which hurts, but I'd rather group all 3 of these together than waste space putting in like a bunch of individual shadowing activities when there's other stuff that I really want to talk about as well. I mean, this was impactful, but not impactful enough for me to dedicate like 3 different activities to just small amounts of time. This next one, once again, this isn't a large amount of time, but this was something that was very impactful for me. It was my first time working in a lab or working with any sort of research, and it meant a lot to me. It got me very excited. It made me interested in research, and yeah, so that's why I put it in there. Next one, collegiate athletics. It was a big part of my life, so I put it in there. I went from being an independent athlete, I was a pole vaulter, to being on a rowing team, and the switch in the team dynamic was definitely something that I had to work through, but yeah, so I mean, athletics, sports. So this is my miscellaneous community service. So I racked up like a decent number of hours. What is that? That's like about 75 hours. And as you can see, it's like with the shadowing, where all of these things that I'm putting in and trying to separate them out with the times, it takes up the 700 characters, but I felt like that was the appropriate way to do it in my mind, and how I did it. So that is all of my activities. I do have a personal statement that I can talk about, but you know, it's a whole bunch of words and things like that, so I'm not going to get into it today. If you guys would like to see a personal statement video, I'm happy to do that and talk through it, but I haven't gotten into medical school yet, so I can't say that this is like, this personal statement got me in or anything like that, but I am proud of my personal statement. It took a lot of love, sweat, and tears, not really, but it means a lot to me. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm going to stop the video there. Until next time, bye.